Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks very much for following our next video for external workforce management and services procurement. In previous discussions, we discussed external workforce in the context of total workforce management, so internal workers with a combination of external workers. We will this time discuss way more service procurement related topics, and I'm very much honored that we have one of our partners with us, which is Vicoland, one of our partners in our large ecosystem, which is embedded into 32 partners we have in our app store, special dedicated to Fieldglass. So I'm very happy to introduce today Vicoland as one of our partners, as well as my valuable colleague, Mr. Claus Rieger. I have Hans-Ulrich von Freyberg with us. He's the COO and founder of Vicoland. Very much welcome. As well as David Obadia, head of sales at Vicoland. And my colleague, Mr. Claus Rieger, who is taking care about Fieldglass as a value advisor. Klaus, do you mind to provide a quick update around Fieldglass, about our solution, before we step into the hemisphere of Vicoland?
Thank you very much, Frank. Yes, more than happy to. Fieldglass, I believe it's one of the most interesting topics nowadays, because with Fieldglass, with the cloud solution of SAP, SAP Fieldglass for managing externals, we are looking at a topic that becomes more and more relevant in the markets today, because we are looking at the management functionalities for temp workers, and we are seeing recent studies showed that we are looking not at something that is small, that is minor, but really when we are looking at the total workforce spend in modern organizations, we see that the percentage of spend for externals is now up to 42%. So this shows the relevance of working with temp workers. And another point is that makes it really interesting to look at Fieldglass, to look at a solution like Fieldglass, is that when we are looking at temp workers, we are looking really at a very diverse group. So we are seeing the classical temp workers, the single runners. We are seeing independent contractors. We are seeing, for the German market, all Arbeitnehmerüberlassene. Very complicated word, but it shows the relevance. It shows that we are looking at a very complex legislation, especially on the German and on the French market, but also on a global scale. So we are seeing these externals basically everywhere in an organization, and it sometimes makes me wonder why organizations don't have full transparency into this area. And this is something where we from Fieldglass, where we are responsible for Fieldglass, want to help organizations with. So I see quite some momentum for a solution like Fieldglass, and I see even more relevance for a solution like Fieldglass when we are looking at our ecosystem that you mentioned before, and today represented with the colleagues by Vicoland.
Very interesting. So very important topic in terms of total spend from the perspective of customers. So I introduced already Vicoland. So would you mind to introduce your company a little bit more in detail, and what your value proposition is for our customers?
Sure, thank you. In Vicoland, our basic value proposition is a new type of supplier for services, for professional services. And this new type of supplier we call a virtual company, or in short just a Vico. So a Vico is a team of freelance experts, but this team has the particularity that it works like a traditional services firms. So a client will work with the Vico as with an agency or consultancy or IT service providers and the like. And that means that a client for a project with a Vico, with the whole Vico team, will only have one contractual relationship, one financial, one organizational relationship. And a customer with a Vico will do projects of a size and of a complexity that usually would go to traditional professional service firms, to the consultancies, agencies, etc. All this is enabled by our digital platform, which is also integrated with Fieldglass. And the basic benefit for the customer is more value for money in services. That is better performance for less cost.
Very interesting. Thanks very much. And how would you see, for example, services procurement as a category from the perspective of companies in terms of, increasing importance to manage, having not just transparency, but also manage this category, which is always has something to do with, if we talk about Fieldglass, with procurement by heart, where people are involved?
Well, professional services are one of the largest spend categories that we have in the German-speaking markets. It's tens of billions of euros every year. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it's one of the most under-managed categories. And that seems to be ironic, but I think there's an explanation, because arguably sourcing services is more of a challenge than sourcing material supplies, right? You cannot count and weigh and assess in quality services the same way you can material supplies, right? It's not nails or soya or laptops. And I think this makes for the fact that there is more of a problem with managing properly services procurement, right? There are means to improve services procurement, but they are not used ubiquitously, right? One of these means is SOW. SOW has the advantage for procurement that you know what you will get for your money. You have a point of comparison, of objective comparison, at the moment you make a choice, and in the end you can be sure about the outcome you get for your money. Now, when you look at the facts, you see that SOW is used relatively little. There has been an SIA report recently that shows that only 27% of the spend under management of MSPs and VMS, of managed service providers, vendor management systems, goes through SOW, right? So all the rest is T&M. And the question is really, why is that so, if it has such an advantage, if it would improve services procurement management? And I think there are two answers to this question. One is that SOW, delivery-based SOW, always requires some initial effort, right? It is some initial effort to write a briefing for an SOW.
Yeah.
In Vicoland, we help customers to author their SOWs. So we know there is a little hurdle, right? But we also know that it's definitely worth it to jump the hurdle, and that you get a payback very soon in the course of the project and at the end of the project. So one problem, one reason for this lack of usage of SOW is inertia. And the other reason is that often spend management systems are used which do not have a proper SOW solution integrated. No fully functionable SOW solution. And that, of course, makes for people, feeling a bit awkward when they have to do an SOW. I mean, Fieldglass here is a notable exception. But then I think in addition, many customers do not have a proper system for services procurement at all. They're using the same system for buying an ad campaign or the rollout of an enterprise application that they use for buying paint and screws and material supplies. And that has a significant negative consequence. It means in most cases that in the procurement system, you don't have native data, you don't have processable data on what has been bought, on which criteria, and at which conditions. This data, it sits in some files, in Excel or PDF, but you cannot process it. And that in turn means that there is a lack of visibility, of controllability, of improvability, right? And in addition, when there is no proper services procurement system, the central procurement function normally is not very much involved because simply they do not have a central system that supports them, right? And that in the end means that it's not objectivity, it's not accountability that reigns in services procurement, but it's personal relationships and it's habits. And that's not good for anybody. So I think there is really a lot of room for improvement in services procurement using the right systems.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for these deep insights. And I think this suites exactly into what you are facing day by day with your experience in the market.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for confirming my point of view.
Well, it's reality. It's not so hard to agree on reality, right?
Obviously, but it brings up an interesting question. Where do you see the market trending to? I mean, you described all the challenges that companies are having with managing SOW. Yeah. Does this trend to increased use of services procurement, or do you see the world more or less going towards the classical contingent workforce again? What is your opinion on this?
Probably I'll add, because we just saw a recent report again from SAA. It was more focused on the IT staffing industry, which was very interesting because it did give numbers to a significant trend where more and more of the engagements are moving from the time and material from the contingent side to the SOW side. And that was quite significant. If my memory serves me right, it was moving from 5 or 6% of engagement that were SOW based within the IT staffing industry in the US to about, in 2015, to about 60% or close to 60% in first half of 2022. So that kind of put a bit of a light in terms of the increase that in certain maybe areas of competence, we see that's a strong increase in SOW. And they give a number of reasons, because obviously the market for SOW is much bigger. It allows for the providers to provide more value to their service. Instead of just providing people, they can start and get more engaged with the customer in defining what the outcome is. And I see, I guess that will drive an opportunity for programs to follow that trend. Because as Hans mentioned, we still see that the main programs, so run by VMS, on a VMS on Fieldglass mainly, but also other MSP programs, it's the SOW component, it's still a small component. So the potential for growth in this area, it's important to not only see it, but to go and after it, really and for companies to say, if they don't grab it, it will mean you still get that black box, which is unmanaged.
Yes.
And that makes much of the work, because what you're seeing at the moment for most organizations is a lot of the spend in contingent moving to SOW. So I think it's important for customers to also follow that trend and to start managing those SOW in a more active way.
Thank you. Very good. Very, very good description. And I'm wondering, because we are already honored that you are already with your solution in our App Store. So what is needed in terms from the perspective of our customers to get engaged with Vicoland? What do they need to do? What do you need to know from our customers as a kind of information to get started with?
Yes, I would say it's actually very easy. There's different ways you can access to Vicoland. So the SAP Store is a very good way to get that first introduction. We've got a nice summary. It talks about how do we fit as well, more specifically within the Fieldglass environment, and then you can start requesting your information from there. But you can also obviously go directly to Vicoland, and we, in the background, will also liaise with SAP's team, but also you can go to your SAP contacts, because they will also have that information and will be able to facilitate that contact. So we're really on the first kind of step, I think, thanks to SAP, to the SAP Store, and to this focus on partnership, you're making it really nice and easy for customers to try and initiate that conversation.
And then maybe before going through all that, customers should understand what is like the main value proposition of Vicoland, right? And as I said, it's value for money, right? But maybe we should be a bit more precise about this, right? We developed and launched Vicoland based on the observation that in the traditional professional services industry, all the suppliers work with a margin around 50%, which means out of every euro that a customer spends on a project, 50 cents do not go into that project. They go mostly to overhead and a bit to the profit of the supplier. So when you look at it from a customer's point of view, right, that is 50% of unproductive spend. And that's where Vicoland comes in. Basically, what Vicoland does is it eliminates unproductive spend in professional services. So when you as a customer, you work with the Vico, it's like working with a supplier which does not have overhead and does not charge, therefore, for the overhead. Everything that in a traditional company becomes organizational or administrative overhead for Vicos is handled by the digital platform. And given that the Vicos operate like real companies, but not with employees, instead with freelancers, the customer does not bear any cost for time or effort that does not go directly into the customer's project. So I think it's important for customers to understand that in order to value what Vicoland and Vicoland through Fieldglass can give to them.
That is perfect, and it brings me to another question. So what is the commercial structure of being engaged with Vicoland from the perspective of our customers? What is the model they are expecting if they get engaged with you?
So when they get engaged with us, first of all, they have the Vicoland consulting service, which we also call, with a twinkle in the eye, our concierge service. So there are experienced professionals that will take care of them, right? And we do not charge for that. There are no fixed charges for Vicoland. We get 9.4% of the value of a project, and that is it, nothing else.
So it's truly like for those who know, it's like a pay-as-you-go. So you, for us, and we only charge the Vicos, in other words, the supplier. So you can relate it to a pay-as-you-go model, being supplier funded, which I think a lot of customers will be familiar with. So we fit very nicely with that model, which is very often a model we see as well with the MSP partners. So again, there's a strong alignment from a commercial perspective with the MSP providers as well.
Well, that sounds very easy and transparent. Another thing is, you described your concierge services, which I liked. What is after the signature? Do you have any kind of support in terms of adoption, where software is in the game? The most critical path is always adopting the solution. So do you have people on the ground or in your organization supporting customers after the contract signature, and how they are going to do that?
Yes, I think that's a very good question, and something that I think any customers need to keep in mind. We bring the concept of Vicos, as you probably picked up from now, is very interesting and very appealing for organization, but we need to find a way within the organization to get to those projects. So then we can start really adding that value. So for that, we mentioned that concierge service that has different roles. First, it will be able to add value in understanding the need of the requester and articulating it. So if we can get a bit early in that discussion, in that architecture of the solution that the request is asking, we can provide already some help there. And that needs to be facilitated by the customer organization as much as possible. The second step is then to go through curating the Vicos, because again, the value of having Vicoland is not to have to manage a long tail of suppliers. We kind of provide that diversity within the marketplace. So it's a question of being able to have that facilitator, that concierge, that will be able to pick the ideal, if you want, virtual companies, the Vicos, to bid for those projects. That again has a lot of value, because it means from a requester perspective, you don't need to review an extensive number of responses that you would typically get if you go into a public marketplace, and also you're minimizing and you're focusing the effort from the Vicos that are bidding for those projects.
So today we have a bit more than 700 Vicos on the marketplace that the Vicoland consulting service can pick from depending on the needs of the customer. So the service range is, let's say, focused on IT, marketing, consulting at this point. And then also some of our customers, they do not just utilize Vicos from the marketplace, they also utilize Vicoland in order to consolidate their relationships with single freelancers into Vicos, which has efficiency advantages and also legal or compliance advantages, because a Vico is a construct that protects against what you call in German Scheinselbstständigkeit, worker misclassification.
Yeah.
That's an issue not just in Germany, it's an issue in many countries around the world.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I fully understood the benefits of the use of Vicoland. Where do you personally see then the added benefit of the use of, for a customer who's using Vicoland together with a VMS system like Fieldglass in this combination?
Yes, very important point, because using Vicoland through a VMS is really adding another value. When you do that, first of all, you get access as a customer to the benefits of Vicos, to these value for money benefits through the services procurement interface you're used to, right? And that also means that at the same time, you get immediate zero effort integration with your processes and with your rules. So as a customer, you can challenge through Vicoland and the VMS your incumbent suppliers, and you don't have to renounce to the ways of working and the processes and tools that you have been used to. And then I think there is an additional benefit from the perspective of the requesters, the need owners, the business people. Because when they have access to these value for money benefits of Vicos through the VMS, they have an added incentive to use the VMS in the first place, which often is a problem, as we know. And when this VMS, like Fieldglass, also has an SOW option, then you will see more SOW, and that's beneficial for everybody involved.
Very good.
I will probably add maybe one or two more,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I see as well another, but it's going more into the operational side as well of things. But if we look just from in Fieldglass, the opportunity to do some multi-bids. In other words, instead of just going with one supplier to get the SOW, there's an opportunity to obviously go to multiple suppliers and in order to get some bids and some competition going. And like we said, coming from the human cloud, from the digital space, allows us to be more competitive than the traditional incumbent. And being able to, through the VMS, to be able to consolidate those offers to the requesters if they find it difficult to move from the traditional incumbent consulting or professional services firm to more of a digital way of engaging with professional services, that can also help quite a bit in that transition. So that would be, I think, something that can.
Last question. Thanks very much, and very interesting and deep dives into the hemisphere of service procurement. Do you have any kind of companies where you did measure the result in terms of benefits afterwards, after they did start the journey with Vicoland? So, you know, most of the time before you get started, has to be prepared a business case and the numbers. But do you have any kind of, you know, let me say after a 12 months period working together with Vicoland, a result of benefits with your customers?
So we start.
Yeah, I think we looked actually sometimes just on the rates aspect. So what makes up a rate for professional services? And I think you touched on that a bit earlier, but there are a number of components when you go through the traditional, because the traditional professional services firm will have a number of overheads in terms of the physical infrastructure, the sales team that we have in place, the marketing, HR, and all those kind of departments that creates quite a significant level of overhead, in addition to typically fairly large margins and so forth that comes with, depending on the professional services firm. When you move that traditional model into a digital form, this is where we started to look at how we can really make it as efficient as possible for the Vico and for the end customer to benefit from those savings. So on the technology platform, it really automates all of the organizational, contractual payment aspects. So all of what has got a certain level of cost on a traditional supplier are significantly diminished or eliminated, I would say, because you only have that percentage.
I think I can name a couple of examples here. For instance, Vicos helped Tupperware to roll out their e-commerce in Europe, right? And Tupperware saved, in comparison with offers they got from traditional firms, around 35%, right? And on top of that, I mean, it was quite urgent. They were able to start working with the Vicos 10 days after we had gotten the request. Right here also you see the flexibility that Vicoland adds. Another example is German insurance company HDI. Vico developed for them the online insurance function, and also is at this point maintaining it. And here again, it's about the same effects. It's speed and it's saving cost. And I think we can also mention our partner Kelly OCG, an MSP with about $10 billion under management. And I mean, we cannot name their customers here because it's their customers. But I think cooperating with Vicoland helps them definitely to enhance their spend under management into the services SOW area, you know, adding that on top of contingent work.
Very good examples, and I think very helpful for our customers as well. So thanks very much to you gentlemen for your time and visiting us and having these deep dives into your solution. Very helpful and very interesting for us and hopefully for you as well. Thanks to you, Claus, as well for your kind words of our Fieldglass solution. We will provide a link to this video in combination that you are able to find the offering and more information about our partner Vicoland. Thanks very much for having us, for watching this video, and please stay tuned for the next series, which is all around our Fieldglass ecosystem. Thank you very much.